I gotta say, I can't believe this. It is consistently running at 63 watts. Bravo, AMD, and Asus for giving us this level of performance in a machine like this for this price. This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the best way to make an amazing website. We all know that Apple's M1 chips have been absolutely destroying Intel lately, but they're not the only ones in the game. AMD has really been stepping it up, and they put out a claim saying that their new 5000 series is the fastest mobile processor. So we are gonna put that claim to the test today and compare that brand new AMD chip in this brand new G14 Zephyrus against the M1 MacBook Pro. And not only are we gonna take a look at CPU performance, both for simple tasks and heavy workloads and benchmarks, but we're also gonna take a look at real world tests such as photo editing, video editing, browser speeds, and more. And along with that, we're gonna be testing out how hot these machines get. We're gonna pull out our thermal camera, we're gonna listen to the fan noise. So this is gonna be one interesting comparison. Now, before we jump into those performance tests, I have to quickly share a few key differences between these machines. As you guys can see, they are much different. The MacBook Pro is a thin and light Ultrabook. It does have a single fan, whereas the G14 is much thicker, it is much heavier, it has vents all around, it props itself up off the desk when you open up the display so it can suck in and exhaust as much air as possible. So it is a gaming laptop. It is not as Ultrabook, it is designed for maximum performance, so it's not completely fair in that way. And along with that, it also has this massive power brick that's 180 watts compared to 61 watts, so it draws a lot more power as well. And I'm gonna be curious to see how it performs when we go ahead and unplug it and run some of those tests a second time if you don't have access to wall power. Now, the price of the G14 is very reasonable for the performance that you're getting, and because the G14 is a gaming laptop, there's a huge different focus on the design and everything, including the display. It's a 144 Hz panel, 1080p, so that's great for gaming, but it's 16:9. It's not very color accurate. The contrast isn't great. So of course the MacBook Pro screen smokes it. Same thing goes with the keyboard, with the trackpad, with the speakers. All around, it's a much different machine, but we still want to see the performance differences. Now, before we jump into our first performance comparison, let me give a shout out to the sponsor of this video, Squarespace. If you've been thinking about making your own website, now is the perfect time, and Squarespace is seriously the best way to go. You can build a great looking website like we did with literally no web making experience. And it doesn't matter if you want a portfolio, a blog, e-commerce, or anything else, you just choose a template and customize blocks of text and images. It's incredibly simple, it's affordable, and ours has been running flawlessly for years now, bringing in lots of traffic thanks to its built-in SEO tools. Start your free 2-week trial with no credit card required by going to squarespace.com/maxtech or use our custom link down below. And when you're ready to launch, you will save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. The first test that I want to do is Speedometer web browser test. It's gonna go ahead and test out how quickly and how responsive your web browsing experience is. And it definitely shows you the real world performance. For example, the M1 Macs, they are noticeably snappier than my Mac Pro in web browsing, and this test definitely showed it in the past. Here we go, the brand new AMD processor scored 165 runs per minute compared to 211. So the M1 Mac is about 28% faster or more responsive at loading web pages, Java, and everything else that is tested. So it's faster, but this score is excellent. This is probably the fastest score that I've seen in a laptop, or maybe anything other than an M1. And now it's time to start pushing this CPU. I have Geekbench 5 opened up right here, and both of these laptops are 8-core processors. That's one awesome thing about the AMD processors. And with the M1, it's also an 8-core, but 4 of those cores are power efficiency cores. So only 4 cores are high performance. Now, we also have a difference in frequencies. I went ahead and opened up CPU ID right over here because I want to see what frequency it can actually hit, because the maximum advertised is a massive 4.63 gigahertz, which is crazy, and the base is 3.3, whereas our M1 actually only maxes out at 3.2, lower than even the base. And now we are plugged in. All right, the G14 is about done. Single core, we have 1496 compared to 1744, and multi-core, we're looking at 7322 compared to 7670. So the M1 MacBook Pro is beating it out in single and in multi-core score. And just to show you guys, I do have the machine set to best performance and it is plugged in. So I wanted to make sure that these tests were accurate here. So I did some digging on Geekbench browser, and it looks like these scores are right in line with what other owners of the G14 are getting. Now let's go ahead and unplug this laptop and we'll see, can this performance be maintained or is it going to tank? Let's make sure we're set to the best performance, which it looks like we are. It did go down to performance mode. No longer can we access the turbo mode. And let's go ahead and run this one more time. The M1, I actually ran it unplugged from the get-go. So this is the performance you're getting. It doesn't matter if you're plugged in or unplugged. All right, the test is done and we have 1,028 single core compared to 1,744 when both are on battery, and 6,132 multi-core compared to 7,670. Single core, we have a difference of about 70%. That is a massive difference in performance for simple tasks. So I was curious about how that big difference in single core performance drop actually affects real world usage. So I ran Speedometer 2.0 again, and as you guys could see, we dropped all the way down to 112. That's like using a computer or a Mac that is, say, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old. Definitely you take almost a 50% hit in web browsing performance. Now I'm gonna run the compute test built into Geekbench 5. We're using Cuda since that's what Nvidia uses. And we're gonna run Metal, make sure to change this, for the M1. And this is where this G14 should be doing fantastic because of that brand new RTX 3060 GPU. All right, guys, there you have it. But look at this CUDA score. We have 100,231 compared to 21,882. It's almost 5 times higher CUDA performance. That is insane. Of course, that is plugged in once again. I'm just curious, if we go ahead and unplug it, how much of that do we retain? Bam, right there. That is awesome. I am very happy. Of course, we did drop performance, but not by that much. Looks like about 10% performance dip when we were unplugged. How the integrated graphics is going to perform with this new AMD chipset. So I'm gonna switch over. We're switching over to OpenCL. Let's hit run. All right, that is actually really good and surprising because that's very similar to what Intel is currently doing with their best mobile processors on the graphics side. And now let's do a quick gaming comparison. Obviously, this is a gaming machine, the M1 is not. And we have our results, and the G14 has a killer score of 162 frames per second compared to 81.1. So basically double the performance in terms of gaming, at least when we're plugged in. Now it's also very interesting that in Geekbench, the G14 got about 5 times the performance, whereas here, 2 times the performance. So it's not nearing those levels, and it really shows off the efficiency of the unified architecture for the M1 graphics. And if we ever get some high-end good games for Mac, the performance is gonna be awesome relative to raw performance, just like Vadim talked about in his M1 gaming video. And now let's push these CPUs to their limits and see how they stack up. And let's go ahead and get a baseline reading. These machines have been sitting here for about 20 minutes or so. The G14 is running at 34 degrees Celsius and our M1 machine is at 30 degrees Celsius. So a lot more cool everywhere all around. We just have a hot spot there. And let's go ahead and hit start on our multi-core 10-minute stress test here. And as far as wattage, whoa, we're up at 70. We hit 70 watts here, which is crazy. The M1 actually maxes out at 15 watts if you're counting both efficiency cores and the high performance cores. And as we're going, this thing is flying and we're staying above 60 watts. We're at 64 right now. And as far as frequency, you're looking at about 3.8 gigahertz on all 8 cores compared to maxing out at 3.2 for the M1. Now the fans are still staying about the same. And then, oh, there you go, they kicked up as we're reaching 90 degrees Celsius. So definitely a lot of heat, if you guys can hear that, from running at over 60 watts. But I gotta say, I can't believe this. It is consistently running at 63 watts in a machine like this. Now, sure, it's bulkier and heavier and more cumbersome than the M1, but it's still a small and lightweight machine running at this level of power and the fans are keeping up with the heat because we're sitting at 91, 92 degrees Celsius, maintaining 3.9 gigahertz. That is crazy. I gotta say, bravo AMD and Asus for giving us this level of performance in a machine like this for this price. So it's been about 5 minutes. Let's look at our thermals. It looks like we're getting 44 Celsius down there in the hottest spot. Definitely running hot, but still maintaining that performance. And look at the M1. Yep, so we're starting to get warm at 38 degrees Celsius there. And as you guys see, some of the heat kind of gets drawn back, but definitely a lot cooler, and the hot spot is also smaller. Okay, I can hear a little bit, not very much. All right, guys, we are pretty much done here, and the whole time the G14 stayed at about 63 watts, which is crazy. I like when machines run at their full performance, just like the M1 does. So our M1 got finished first, 7,777 points. That's probably because the 10-minute timer ran out, and then right after that, it was a little bit closer to that. This thing lapped it, of course, and look at that, guys. 12,744 points. That is insane. And now I'm really curious, how close to this insane level of performance can we get when we go ahead and unplug this machine? Let's go ahead and run that once again. I'm just gonna do the single test, not the 10-minute loop. All right, they're finished. We have our results, and it looks like we got 11,519, which is roughly 10% lower performance than when it was plugged in. So that is actually not bad at all, way better than I expected. On the M1, we got slightly higher score. Of course, we were running on battery both times. And now the performance difference when both these are on battery is 48% faster or better performance for the G14 with that 5900HS. And now let's get into some photo editing. I have Lightroom Classic opened up right here, and this program is not yet optimized, still about 6 months later. So I'm gonna start out right here in the develop stage, and these files are massive. They have a bunch of different corrections already applied. So let's go ahead and shift through these. So you guys saw right there, the AMD definitely switched faster. Let's try again. Wow, about the same on that one. About the same. Overall, very similar. What about responsiveness? If you gotta punch in, very responsive there, as you guys could see on the M1 with our G14. Also very responsive. And now let's test out the brush performance. This is very difficult when we're making these changes on the fly. So let's press down. All right, pretty dang smooth. I'm gonna go Control Z. Try that again. A little bit of stuttering right at the start, which it's just very interesting to see this much raw performance and it's still having that little stutter. Very similar, stuttering across the top, and then when I go lower, it kind of smooths out. Wow, all right, so far, pretty close with the G14 being just a little bit ahead. And now let's really push these machines. I'm gonna go ahead and build one-to-one previews on both. All right, bam, the G14 with the AMD processor just got finished. It did end up catching up and then going even faster than our M1 MacBook Pro, which we're still waiting on. Bam, the M1 is done. And the difference was around 40 seconds. So we had about 4 minutes for the G14 and 4 minutes and 40 seconds for the M1. So this is definitely faster, but that difference in speed isn't anywhere near the double the performance that we saw in Cinebench R23. And now let's go ahead and export these 50 images to JPEG. I went ahead and cleared out the previews and I unplugged the G14 because typically both these tests, they kind of go hand in hand as far as percentage of performance difference. So let's go ahead and get started on both. Bam, we are finished up on both machines, and I don't want to say that I didn't expect this because I say that a lot, but I honestly didn't expect this. I think you are not going to expect this either. So in terms of raw performance in Cinebench, when the G14 was plugged in, we had a 65% higher performance than the M1. When we unplugged it, we had about a 50% higher performance than the M1, but in the previews, when we built those plugged in, we only saw about a difference of 15% faster for the AMD processor. Now get this, with it unplugged, when we exported these images, the M1 was actually faster. And it was actually 26% faster than the G14. It took 2 minutes and 40 seconds compared to 3 minutes and 22 seconds. That just blows my mind for 2 reasons. The first reason is, actually maybe 3 reasons. Lightroom is not optimized for M1 yet. It's running emulated under Rosetta or translated. Number 2, this gets about 50% higher CPU performance, and this is a CPU-based task. And 3, this machine right here has 16 gigs RAM compared to this base MacBook Pro, which has 8 gigs of RAM. So this is a base model for $1,300. I know I showed in the beginning the equivalent price difference if both are spec'd the same with the same RAM and SSD, but it's also running with less RAM, and it was 26% faster, which I just didn't expect. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. And now let's get into video editing. The G14 is plugged back in, and I have a 4K clip opened up right here. The first test I want to do is stabilization, which does use the CPU. So let's go ahead and analyze and see how long this takes. I'm gonna start it on both. Both are actually rolling pretty quickly right now. Adobe's trying to work on Premiere to get it to work faster on the M1. Of course, Final Cut is king. We're testing cross-platform, so we're gonna be using Premiere. The M1 is ahead. We have 45% compared to 65% analyzed. That is crazy. And our M1 took exactly 1 minute, which is really fast. And the AMD took 1 minute and 25 seconds, which means that the M1 is actually about 41% faster at stabilization, which is crazy. And that's with the G14 plugged in. And now let's see how smoothly they can play back this H.265 file, which all new cameras are now coming with. We're playing back 4K here with 2 LUTs and film grain, full 4K quality, and neither one of these machines are having any issues. It looks like both are playing it back perfect. Let's go ahead and unplug the G14. It is still playing it back pretty much perfectly smoothly. Now I am curious, and I want to see how much of that GPU is being taxed. Yeah, so it looks like we're only using it about 30%. Whereas on the Mac, we're using it at 91% capacity. And let's go ahead and export this 5-minute 4K project. We have hardware encoding enabled on both of these. All right, and right off the bat, this is down to under 3 minutes of estimated time. And here we're at 7 minutes and 20 seconds. The G14 is almost done here. And as you guys can see and probably hear, it is just going crazy. We're using the CPU a fair bit. The graphics card's at 78, 85%. Surprisingly, it's being pushed to its limits, and the fans are just going crazy with high heat. Here, our graphics card's at 100%, CPU's only at 25%. So the M1 is definitely being limited by the graphics in this specific test. And there you go, the G14 with that 3060 is finished. Took 2 minutes and 51 seconds, which is crazy. Now, I want to run that one more time while we're waiting for our M1 MacBook Pro to finish, but I'm going to unplug it and see how it performs now. And look at that, it is still running really, really quickly. And look at that, 3 minutes and 7 seconds. It looks like our M1 is finally about to finish up. 7 minutes and 15 seconds. So we have a big difference in performance there. Now I will say, if we are running DaVinci Resolve, that is better optimized for the M1 than Premiere. That takes 3 minutes to do the same test. And in Final Cut, the same exact project, same effects, takes 2 minutes and 25 seconds. And that's a program that's completely optimized for M1. So there you guys go, my performance comparison with the brand new AMD 5900HS, the chip that they say is the best mobile processor against the M1. What do you guys think? Is it the best mobile processor? We had all those tests. We had real world tests, browser tests, Geekbench, 3D rendering, video editing, photo editing. What surprised you? What did you expect and what did you not expect? I want to hear your guys' thoughts down in the comment section below. Both of these are linked in the video description. Go ahead and click that circle above if you guys want to subscribe and see more videos like this one. And go ahead and check out one of the other great videos right over there. This has been Max, and I'll see you in the next video.